In 1957, the Army Corps of Engineers told Rapid City, South Dakota, that their creek could kill them. They had blueprints ready. They proposed concrete channels and reinforced banks, designed to handle 6,000 cubic feet per second. The cost was $2.7 million. The city voted it down. 15 years later, on the night of June 9, 1972, that same creek peaked at 50,000 cubic feet per second. That was 8 times what the Corps had planned for. 238 people were dead before sunrise, and the city never rebuilt on that ground again. We went through every USGS flood report, every Army Corps of Engineers after action document, every archived page of the Rapid City Journal. And the part that stays with us is not the water. It is what the city did after. But first, June 9th. The storm that hit the Black Hills that Friday afternoon was not supposed to be special. The National Weather Service office in Rapid City repeated a standard severe thunderstorm outlook around noon. Hail, maybe some wind. Routine summer weather 60 miles from Mount Rushmore. By 3 in the afternoon, radar at Ellsworth Air Force Base picked up a line of thunderstorms moving west into the hills. Nothing alarming. Thunderstorms moved west into the Black Hills every summer. But this one did not move through. It stalled. The storm system locked in place over the eastern slopes and dumped rain for 6 straight hours. At a weather station near the town of Nemo, 15 inches fell in that window. 15 inches. For context, Rapid City gets about 16 inches of rain in an entire year. One small stretch of canyon got a full year of rain before dinner was over, and all of that water had one place to go: downhill. Through Dark Canyon, a narrow bedrock gorge 1 mile west of Rapid City, where Rapid Creek squeezes between limestone walls and drops onto the plains. On a normal day, the creek runs a few hundred cubic feet per second through that canyon. On June 9th, it was carrying 50,000 cubic feet per second. The USGS later calculated that the water rose 4 feet per minute in the canyon narrows. An entire neighborhood called Swiss Chalet sat right where the creek exited the gorge onto flat ground. Only 3 of the 42 homes in that development survived. By 6:30 that evening, the Pennington County Civil Defense Director was reporting 3 inches of rain at Pactola Dam upstream. Rapid Creek was rising rapidly. By 8, the Weather Service expanded the flash flood warning to Rapid Creek and Box Elder Creek. An emergency operations center opened downtown, but the warning had a problem. Rapid City had 4 outdoor warning sirens in 1972. Not one of them ever sounded that night. At 10:30, Mayor Don Barnett went on local radio and television and begged people in low-lying areas to evacuate immediately. Barnett was 29 years old, the youngest mayor in Rapid City history, and he was standing on the west bank of Canyon Lake, watching the water rise against a 40-year-old earthen dam that was only 20 feet tall. That dam had been rebuilt by the Works Progress Administration in 1938. Its spillway could handle 3,200 cubic feet per second. The peak inflow that night was 34,000, more than 10 times what the spillway was built for. Mobile homes ripped from their foundations upstream had jammed against the spillway grate alongside propane tanks, cars, and entire trees. The water had nowhere to go. It rose 11 feet above the normal pool, went straight over the top of the earthen embankment, chewed through the downstream face, and blew a hole in the dam at approximately 10:45. If you want to know what happened next, and what the bulldozers found at sunrise, hit like and subscribe. Here is the fact that changes the story. The dam breaking did not cause the flood. That is the myth we see repeated everywhere. The USGS studied it and concluded that the inflow from Rapid Creek and its tributaries accounted for 86% of the peak flow through the city. Canyon Lake Dam only held about 700 acre-feet. The creek was already delivering a wall of water that would have destroyed the city with or without the dam. The breach made it worse. It made it faster. But it was not the cause. Peak flow hit downtown Rapid City between midnight and 12:15 on Saturday morning. 50,000 cubic feet per second. The National Weather Service calculated that the creek was running at roughly 1.5 times the normal volume of the Missouri River at Omaha through a city where most people were asleep, where the radio stations lost power within 30 minutes of the mayor's broadcast, and where nobody had heard a siren. 3 Rapid City firefighters vanished that night while fighting a gas leak fire. The rushing water pushed the burning house off its foundation, and the entire structure slammed into the firefighters and shoved them into the current. 3 airmen from Ellsworth Air Force Base died during rescue operations in the floodwater. Staff Sergeant Marvin Pepper, Technical Sergeant Blake Thornton, and Staff Sergeant William Ruff. Ellsworth later renamed its inspection laboratory after Pepper and Thornton. A police reserve officer also drowned. In total, 14 trained professionals died trying to save people that night. And then came the strangest coincidence in American disaster history. When the sun came up on June 10th, 2,500 soldiers were already inside the city. They had not been deployed. They were not flown in. 1,800 South Dakota National Guardsmen had arrived at Camp Rapid on the city's west side 6 days earlier for their annual 2-week summer training. They had their full engineering fleet with them: bulldozers, cranes, dump trucks, and heavy transport vehicles. The entire organic equipment inventory of the South Dakota Army National Guard was sitting in motor pools less than 2 miles from the worst destruction. This is the kind of story that disappears if nobody watches it. Like and subscribe. By dawn, those soldiers were working 12-hour shifts. They pulled bodies from the mud along Rapid Creek. They cleared debris from roads so ambulances could reach neighborhoods that no longer existed. 80 blocks of pavement had been torn from the ground. 5,000 automobiles were piled against the Chicago and Northwestern Railroad embankment near Frontier Ford. 15 of the city's 23 bridges over Rapid Creek were gone. Senior Airman Ezra Dean Long at Ellsworth was woken at 5 in the morning by a security police officer who needed a boat. Long grabbed his own personal boat and a friend and drove into the city to start pulling survivors from rooftops and trees. 500 airmen from Ellsworth deployed that first day. By June 11th, that number was 1,143, with 300 military vehicles and 12 Huey helicopters flying more than 60 hours of rescue sorties. The Army Corps of Engineers set up their emergency headquarters at the South Dakota School of Mines and awarded 44 debris removal contracts to civilian heavy equipment crews mobilized through the Associated General Contractors of South Dakota. Those crews removed 1.2 million cubic yards of silt and debris from the city over the next several months. A specialty team flew in from the Corps' Explosive Excavation Research Laboratory in Livermore, California, and deliberately blew a hole in Fort Meade Dam near Sturgis with 3,000 pounds of explosives to prevent a second flood. The blast produced a fireball 200 feet high and carved a gap 80 feet wide at the crest. Now here is where the internet gets the equipment part wrong. If you search for this disaster, you will find videos and articles claiming that Caterpillar D8H bulldozers were used in the cleanup. We looked. The USGS professional paper 877 does not name a single bulldozer model. The Army Corps After Action Report does not name one. The Ellsworth Air Force Base historian does not name one. The Rapid City Journal Archive does not name one. Every source says the same thing: bulldozers, cranes, and trucks. Generic, no makes, no models. The D8H was in production in 1972, so it could have been there. but nobody wrote it down, and anyone who claims a specific model for this event made it up. And here is the other myth. There is a conspiracy theory that has followed this flood for 50 years. A cloud seeding program called Project Cloud Catcher, run by the South Dakota School of Mines, did disperse salt particles into small clouds west of Rapid City on June 9th. That is true, but researchers at the School of Mines later confirmed that the seeding had very little or no effect on the storm. The rainfall was a near maximum event. The ASDSO calculated it at 90% of the probable maximum precipitation for the region, the theoretical ceiling. Cloud seeding did not cause this. The Black Hills caused this. The same geology that makes them beautiful funnels water into narrow canyons that point directly at the towns below. 53 years later, drive through Rapid City and you will see what 238 deaths did to the map. Where neighborhoods once stood along Rapid Creek, there is nothing. Green space, bike paths, ball fields, a 4,000-foot levee protecting a shopping center and a hospital. The city purchased 1,100 parcels covering 3,100 acres for $48 million in federal housing money. They demolished every house, every mobile home park, every motel in the floodplain, and passed a rule that no one would ever sleep on that ground again. 10 city council members voted unanimously. Mayor Barnett told them the city could not sentence the survivors to one more night on the suicidal floodplain. Today, Memorial Park sits in the heart of downtown Rapid City. A bronze monument lists all 238 names, including 5 whose bodies were never found. In Dark Canyon, where the flood first hit the city, concrete house foundations are still visible from the bike path. The U.S. Geological Survey photographed them and captioned the image, slabs marking the location of homes that were swept away. The total damage was $160 million in 1972. Adjusted, that is roughly $1 billion today. The federal government spent another $165 million on cleanup, buyouts, and reconstruction. Canyon Lake Dam was redesigned and rebuilt by 1976. The Sturgis Flood Control Project was finished in 1979. 7 years to physically recover from a flood that lasted 5 hours. But the part we cannot stop thinking about is 1957. 15 years before the flood, the Army Corps of Engineers stood in front of Rapid City and said, "This will happen." They had a plan. The city said no, and the creek remembered. Like and subscribe. And tell us in the comments, has your city ever been warned about something it chose to ignore?